Today we are less than 10 miles from the training facility that was bombed by the Russian forces at 6 a.m. in the morning. What is this training facility?
This facility was used by the Ukrainian military to train foreign volunteers for the war who've come from different countries. It housed about 300 service members or volunteers. And the attack began early this morning with a single explosion and then continued. By the end of it, the latest official figures are that 35 men were killed and 134 others were wounded in the attack. We spoke to a number of locals who said that the explosions were giant. They were about 6-7 kilometers from the facility. Their windows shook, their doors opened, the sky was lit up red with smoke billowing up to the clouds. What about you, Dan? What did you hear from the locals?
Well, we met a couple that came from the eastern parts of Ukraine, and the husband really wanted the wife to leave, but the wife would not move. She feels like she still needs to stay here. It was just one attack. She doesn't really want to cross. She was pregnant, and they wanted to move away from the war, but they still don't want to leave the country. We spoke to a lady at the store who told us that there are a lot of people who live in that village work at the facility. They either cook there or they train with the army or they're part of the army.
Well, we also met a man who was one of the volunteers who came to train at the facility. He arrived about two weeks ago. And
he arrived from a foreign country, came to Ukrainian border about 2 weeks ago, and said that, hey, I want to be part of the Ukrainian military.
The process was pretty easy. When he said he wanted to join, he was taken to this facility. And when the explosions hit, he ran out and described the scene that was very chaotic. The men who made it out alive went into the forest and were told to dig in because there was nowhere to stay.
We also talked to a few military personnel who were there on the ground when the attacks hit. They said when they ran out of the barracks after the first hit, all the debris started hitting them, flying from the air and falling onto them. They came over in a car that was very beat up, but they said everything else was damaged on a much greater scale.
Yes, and the men who we spoke to who trained at the facility told us that after the attack, in the aftermath, they were rounded up and told that those volunteers who want to stay and continue on can stay, and those who want to go can go. He said that many wanted to stay and many wanted to go. He doesn't have an exact number. He was one of those who decided to go back to the country where he came from. He said that he didn't have any formal military training prior to this, that he was scared and shocked by the reality of war. He was not prepared for this, and slightly dispirited because amid the war, not surprisingly, things at the facility were a bit disorganized, and he feels like that they were just sitting there and not getting the training that they need.
We asked him why does he think they got hit specifically at this facility, and he told us that when the rockets came in, they weren't chaotic. It wasn't like carpet bombing. It was very direct and very specific into the barracks, and the rockets went directly into the barracks. People were coming from many different countries, from North America, South America, from Europe, and they were told not to use their phones, not to use social media, but a lot of people still used their phones, still took pictures, still posted those pictures on social media. So he said that their own ignorance led to their own peril.
The locals we spoke to were all in shock, all very quiet, didn't want to be on camera, didn't want to reveal much about what happened this morning. But one man we spoke to did tell us a pretty interesting story, or I guess a local custom of sorts, that Dan knows about because he's Ukrainian.
The trees in the village where we visited and talked to the locals had they were very, very big and ancient trees, but on top of these trees were nests created by storks over hundreds of years. Some of them were giant, covering half of these ancient trees. And what he told us is that in 10 days, the storks are supposed to come back. And when they come back, the war should end. This is Dan Skorbach for NTD.
And Ivan Pentchoukov with the Epoch Times.
Reporting from Yaroviv, Ukraine.